Scary Guy Real Horror Story.
The Mystery of the Bennington Triangle. Carl Hughes, a well-known paranormal researcher in the U.S. and author of numerous books, was invited to a holiday in 2000 in the town of Bennington, Vermont, in the northeastern United States. The locals were celebrating the 50th anniversary of people stopping disappearing in the area. It's a strange holiday, isn't it? But no stranger and the events that took place in this area from 1920 to 1950. Carl arrived late in the small provincial town. The festivities, which began with a speech by the mayor, were over. A charity raffle to benefit the relatives of missing people was in full swing. Long tables were laid out in the open air on the square, and after the raffle the inhabitants and guests of the small town were ready for dinner. Dancing, fireworks, and other entertainment were also part of the program. Carl Hughes took advantage of the opportunity to gather all the information he could about strange happenings in the outskirts of the city more than 50 years ago. The last person to disappear was a young woman, Frida Langer. On October 28, 1950, Frida and her cousin Oliver went for a walk in the heathland area near Glastonbury Hill. Autumn painted the sky a piercing blue, and the air seemed to have a pungent aftertaste that warned of winter's approach. Frida wanted to rest on a fallen tree beside the path. Her companion had moved a few yards away from the log, and when he turned around, it appeared that her sister had disappeared. The girl could not leave. Oliver had only turned away for a few moments. It seemed as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Oliver called out and looked for his sister between the sparse trees, though there was no way to hide behind the thin trunks. The next day, the municipal authorities organized a search, combing the wasteland meter by meter, but no one was found. 7 months later, the body of the disappeared woman appeared in the same place where she disappeared, near a fallen log. The body was found by her father, who came to the log every day. The girl was wearing the clothes she had worn on the ill-fated day of October 28th. The body showed no signs of decomposition, as if Frida had dropped dead only a few minutes before. The pathologist could not determine the cause of death. No one had seen the girl in the 7 months that had elapsed. All these details Carl learned from the police report, kindly provided by the chief of police. The pinnacles of the so-called Bennington Triangle were Glastonbury Hill, the town of Bennington, and the intersection of two country roads 20 kilometers north of Bennington. This is where people have periodically disappeared for 30 years, with Frida Langer being the only one whose corpse has been found. People disappeared from their cars, yards, right out of their beds. Cars were found empty, overturned, or crashed into a tree as if the driver had suddenly abandoned. One of the townspeople, James Thetford, disappeared from a bus practically in front of a stunned passenger on December 1st, 1947. Thetford, unlike most locals, did not believe in the supernatural nature of the disappearance, believing it to be the work of criminals. Whether his opinion on this subject, 14 passengers on the bus saw the elderly James napping in the back seat. However, when they arrived at their destination, the old man was not on the bus, thanks to his colorful appearance, a puffy mustache and beard. All the passengers remembered him. The bus made no stops en route. so there was no way for Thetford to get off. No one noticed the moment of disappearance, as the missing man was sitting behind everyone else. His belongings were left lying on the luggage net. No one has ever seen James since. In 1940, not far from where Frida Langer disappeared, 18-year-old Paula Weldon disappeared just as supernaturally. She was walking on a path through the heath toward Glastonbury Hill. 100 yards behind her, an elderly couple, the Joyces, were moving in the same direction. The path wound around a ridge of rock. As they turned around the ledge, Paula was out of sight. When they arrived there a few minutes later, the young woman had disappeared. There was nowhere to hide. The wasteland was a flat space, overgrown with low grass. Subsequently, no one else saw the girl, who joined the list of victims of the notorious Triangle. The youngest victim of the anomalous zone was 5-year-old Paul Jepson, whose disappearance occurred 16 days before the Frida Langer disaster. Paul's mother left the child playing in the yard and went into the pigsty. When the woman came out a few minutes later, Paul disappeared. He could not leave, as the yard was surrounded by a high fence and the gate was locked. There was no child in the house either. Despite the fact that the child could not leave on his own, an intensive search was initiated, which yielded no results. The boy's mother had a nervous seizure and became ill and could no longer recover from the illness. According to Carl Hughes, 40 people have disappeared without a trace in the sinister Bennington Triangle over a period of 30 years. However, the number of victims may be higher than that figure because of the passage of years. No one will undertake to establish the exact number of missing. Why did this seemingly harmless area near the Canadian border become the center of sinister events? As a paranormal researcher discovered, the area had a notoriety as far back as the 18th and 19th centuries. Indians avoided Glastonbury Heath, believing it to be home to evil spirits. They used the area only for burials, believing that if the evil forces gave up the dead, it would save the living from their aggression. According to local Native American legend, once upon a time, the four winds met, arguing over which of them had priority to blow in the area. The north wind, the trickiest of them all, threw an enchanted stone on the ground, which sucked the other three winds into it. Since then, the predominantly north wind has been blowing in the Bennington area, and the enchanted stone remains lying on the ground. Where exactly, no one knows. The stone sucks in anyone who passes it. Superstition? That's what the first white settlers thought until their relatives and friends began to disappear without a trace. Perhaps something happened in 1950. The heath was finally satiated with innocent victims. The enchanted stone ceased its hunger, or the four winds agreed among themselves. At any rate, no one has gone missing since, and the locals are no longer afraid to go to the Bennington Triangle. You have to agree they have a reason to have an annual holiday. Why do you think it ended? If you liked the video, like it and share it with your friends. It will help promote